across New York State to advocate for issues that bring human dignity, for issues that will help our communities with affordable housing, with making sure and ensuring that law enforcement is obeying itself in the community, and that we are fighting for the rights of everyday New Yorkers. Our faith communities are barometers of how a community is doing. When a church is struggling, when a synagogue or mosque is struggling, it shows that a community is struggling. And the fact that so many people in our congregations are having to leave the state, having to move because they are struggling with basic needs is unacceptable. So faith leaders who we have behind us today are joining together to demand justice. One of the issues that is really coming to the forefront in our community is that of immigration. Immigration, as we have seen over the past year, is becoming one where families don't know if their loved ones will go out to the store and come home. They don't know if their loved ones will go to school and not return. So we are saying enough is enough. We are standing together to demand justice in immigration. We have several bills that we are supporting. One is the Sensitive Locations Act. The Sensitive Locations Act is sponsored in the Senate by Senator Jackson and is sponsored in the Assembly by Assemblymember Lasher. And so our first speaker today will be Senator Jackson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to stand today with the faith leaders of New York State, pastors, rabbis, imams, ministers, spiritual guides, us, whoever carried the moral conscience of our communities. And as a Muslim and a legislator, I know the faith traditions share a simple truth. Sacred spaces must remain a place of refuge. And in moments of uncertainty, people who do not turn to government buildings, they turn to their houses of worship. They turn to prayer, to counsel and sanctuary. Yet today, too many people, families, live within the shadows of their daily lives. Parents worry that sending a child to school brings danger. Patients hesitate before seeking medical care. Worshipers look around their shoulders before entering a place of prayer. When fear enters space meant for healing, learning, and faith, sometimes sacred in our society is disturbed. That is why I carry Senate Bill S. 4121, legislation to protect our neighbors, friends, and families when they seek care, education, shelter, or spiritual guidance. And this bill draws a clear line in the law. Schools, houses of worship, hospitals, shelters, and government offices must remain a place of refuge. Immigration enforcement should not enter these spaces without a judicial warrant. Ideally, not at all. The law must protect the spaces where human dignity is affirmed every single day. Across this nation, we are witnessing fear directed at immigrant communities. New York must answer this moment with moral clarity. Our state, New York State, is strongest when justice is not just spoken about, but lived. No child should fear going to school. No patient should fear seeking medical care. No one should fear seeking refuge in a house of worship. And with the leadership of our faith communities, we are reminded that protecting the vulnerable is not only good policy, it is a moral responsibility. And together, And together we will ensure that in New York, sanctuary is not just a word spoken from the pulpit, it is a promise written in law. So with that, I thank you all for coming. We all work together for peace and understanding. And I say, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. So let's pass the sensitive location back. 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 Awesome. So we also have the Assembly sponsor of the bill with us today, and we are very grateful for his leadership in the Assembly and for all of the work that it has taken to bring this bill to the forefront. So we want to welcome Assembly Member Micah Lasher.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for being here today. Thank you, Senator Jackson, for your partnership on this. We are living in a very dark time. We're living at a time when the fundamental proposition of New York and the ethos of our faith, that we are stronger together, is under relentless attack by our federal government. Right. And the question that weighs on me, that I know weighs on so many of my colleagues, is when we reach the other side of this dark time, and I believe that we will, did we do everything in our power to protect our neighbors, to welcome the stranger, to stand for the values that are at the heart of New York? And thank you. And that is the animating spirit behind this legislation, that, as Senator Jackson so eloquently said, no child should be afraid to go to school, no family afraid to seek health care access, no one should be afraid to go into a house of worship.
Amen.
And the other piece of this is that, yes, it's about protecting our immigrant neighbors, but it's also about strengthening our communities. Because no one is safer when someone's afraid to go report a crime to their police department.
Right.
No one's healthier when families are afraid to take care of their health care needs. No one's better off when kids are afraid to go to school.
Right.
And so I'm so glad that my colleagues, the legislature, Senator Fahy is here, who's been a champion of making sure that the federal agents who are perpetrating this reign of terror have to show their identities. And you all should know that the New York State Legislature, the Democrats, the New York State Legislature, are deeply committed to these values and to using every tool we have at our disposal to protect all New Yorkers. So, but we can't do it alone. We need you up here. We need you sounding the voice of moral conscience in this state to say that we need to get these bills done. So I'm grateful to you, and together we will succeed. Thank you so much.
So we will not go back past the Sensitive Locations Act. We will not go back past the Sensitive Locations Act. We will not go back past the Sensitive Locations Act. We will not go back past the Sensitive Locations Act. We will not go back past the Sensitive Locations Act. So in addition to protecting our communities so that our houses of worship are safe, our hospitals are safe, our courtrooms are safe, we want to ensure that those who are actually enforcing this will have and be identified. One of the things we are experiencing is ICE agents are wearing masks to obscure their identities. I'll repeat that again. ICE agents are wearing masks to obscure their identities, and it is putting our communities in danger. So there is a bill that's been introduced by Senator Pat Fahy called the MELT Act. And so we are welcoming Senator Pat Fahy to explain more about that act and how we can help pass that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the clergy that are here today. I couldn't be more proud to stand with you and stand with my colleagues, Senator Jackson, Assemblymember Lasher, and so many more who have spoken out and continue to speak out. But I do think the clergy and what they have done to really help us put a face on what it can only be described as a reign of terror, with the extraordinary overreach of ICE, not just in our places of worship, but in our schools, our hospitals, our streets, and not just in our urban cores, our suburban areas, our rural areas. It's as if you are safe. And I do believe we are at a decisive moment in our history. I am so proud to stand with so many. I have to say, 8 months ago, this was a little bit lonelier, and I don't think people understood as much. But once they began to watch how horrific this was in LA, in Portland, in Chicago, and then, of course, Minneapolis, where US citizens could be shot in broad daylight, it really painted such a picture of just what we are dealing with. And I can only pray that Alex Preddy and Lisa Good will not have died in vain, nor any of the others, because there are others. Yeah. And quite frankly, I carry the radar bill, but I hope at some point we will all have truth commissions that come out after this reign of terror. And I share the optimism of Assemblymember Lasher and Senator Jackson. We will get through this. I am so proud to sponsor the MELT bill with Tony Simone. And it's really simple. No one's safe when we have masked, armed agents on our streets anywhere. We have spent decades in spending hundreds of millions of dollars in body cameras, which most law enforcement in this state, if not in the country, have embraced. Why we could suddenly go from having body cameras to people with masks on and completely anonymous, no judicial warrants, arresting people in broad daylight off our streets is not who we are as a country. We are better than this. We are better than this, and all human beings have fundamental rights. The Constitution guarantees those rights to residents. No one requires that you have to carry around passports and citizenship papers. So I am proud to stand with you. I support an entire package, and there is an entire package. New York for all, sensitive locations, the radar bill. I also had the Avello Airlines bill, which was the day after Renee Good, I meant Renee Good was shot. Avello Airlines finally said they will no longer do deportations in this country. So it tells you showing up matters. Showing up matters. Please keep showing up. I'm really proud to stand with so many of you on a host of legislation. Thank you. Thank you all.
Melt that ice! 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 Thank you so much, Senator Fahy. Our houses of worship are proponents of this bill and these bills because, again, we serve the community, and no one knows serving the community like the Archdiocese of New York City. And so we're going to call to the podium Mary Rothwell Davis, who is going to speak about the Sensitive Locations Act.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm from the Episcopal Diocese of New York, and we are a sanctuary diocese. That's right. Yes, we are. So, when the federal protection of sensitive locations was rescinded more than a year ago, we got to work immediately. And we found the best partners in Senator Jackson and Assemblymember Lasher. And it's been a long haul, but as was just said, we're now seeing why we need these bills. We don't ask at the Episcopal Diocese where you're from. We don't ask to see your identification. What we ask, as Bishop Hyde says, is, are you hungry? Do you need clothing? Do you need a safe place to sleep? How can we help you? And that work, that sacred work that we have, has been impeded by the fear that is ripping through our communities. This bill, the Sensitive Locations Act, will help restore our community to the sacred spaces that we deserve. Thank you. So please pass this bill.
And one of the next immigration bills that we support, each bill does something to pick away at the structure ICE has around our communities. The next bill, New York for All, will help to decouple the relationship between local law enforcement and ICE, federal enforcement agencies. So I would like to bring to the microphone, to the podium, Iridian Lucas, who's representing the Columbia County Sanctuary Movement.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Before we start off, I want to make it loud and clear why we're here. What do we want? New York for all. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? New York for all. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? New York for all. When do we want it? Now. Now say it with me. Faith for New York for all. 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 Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Iridian Lucas. I'm the campaigns coordinator with Columbia County Sanctuary Movement, and we organize with immigrants and allies to collectively support, empower, and defend our communities in the Capital Region and the Mid to Upper Hudson Valley. We're gathered here today at the Capitol, standing united with our faith community, gathered from across the state, all united in our call to legislative leadership, Governor Kathy Hochul, Speaker Hasty, and Assembly and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins to make it clear that we need to pass the New York for All Act now. And we call on our lawmakers. We are calling on them to show the same courage that our immigrant community neighbors and that our allies have been showing in our communities, joining rapid response networks, joining mutual aid support groups, joining local community organizations, and organizing to demand change. Not so long ago, in my youth, I actually served as an altar server at my local Catholic church. And I hold lots of those values close to my heart, as does many of my fellow immigrant community members, and as does my family, having been raised in a Catholic household. So we want to make it clear that the New York for All Act is the most comprehensive bill that would address the issue that we're seeing, not just in our state, but across the country, which is a blatant violation of our rights and collusion that we're seeing across states with immigration enforcement. The New York for All Act is the only legislation that would address this issue and would end the collusion that we're seeing between ICE and state and local agencies, including law enforcement. And it also ensures that no New York tax dollars go to ICE and provides the needed protections that our immigrant community needs. And I want to mention that the Governor Kathy Hochul's proposal, Local Crimes, Local Cops Bill legislation, recognizes the fact that we should not have law enforcement via 287G agreement deputized to do the bidding of ICE. And while that is a step in the right direction in acknowledging something that the New York for All Act does in prohibiting 287G agreements, it does not do enough. It does not meet the moment. It expires in 3 years. There should be no expirations on protections for our community members, right? We also want to make it known that the New York for All Act would ensure that people know their rights. This is something that immigration enforcement likes to prey on. They hope and they pray that immigrants, that allies do not know their rights when they are being questioned. But it is fact that our communities have basic constitutional rights and have the ability to exert those. So right now, there is no guarantee for people in custody to be given a notice of what their rights are before being interviewed. Is that right? No. And our bill fixes that. The New York State Legislature and Governor have the power to end the complicity and the collusion that we're seeing between our state and immigration enforcement. And they have been terrorizing our communities. They have been tearing apart our families, preying on the fact that we don't know our rights and that we aren't organized to protect one another. And it is our duty to continue to advocate for immigrant community members. It is our duty to protect one another. It is our duty to stand up for one another in these times and make sure that we have each other to rely on when there is an agency that is violating our rights, that is killing people in the streets without impunity. So say it with me, New York for all, protections, no exceptions. 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 Thank you.
So we're going to hear more about New York for all, but it's important to understand there's an intersection between law enforcement at the federal level and what's happening in our communities and law enforcement and the federal level. So we want to transition to criminal justice. We're going to speak about several bills. We're going to bring to the podium Reverend Jim Ketchum, and then we're also going to hear from Advocate Ronnie Mintor about their work in making sure that there's oversight in local and county jails. So we're going to bring first Reverend Jim Ketchum and then Ronnie.
Sometimes people ask me, why is the Council of Churches involved in criminal justice reform? I say to them, we are people of faith. We worship a God who is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in love. We believe in redemption and restoration. We believe that all people are children of God regardless of their sins. We believe that people can and do change through repentance and service to others. Therefore, we support efforts to respect the dignity and the rights of incarcerated individuals, such as these bills listed below. I want to talk first for Ronnie to talk about our bill to oversee county jails.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was coming here today specifically just to talk about the bill that would put regulation on county jails throughout the state. However, on my way up here to this press conference, I happened to get on the elevator with Speaker Hastings, his dog, Assemblyman Al Taylor, and another gentleman named Marcus, who works in Speaker Hastings' office. As I'm talking to the speaker about the county jail bill, the speaker reminds me that a lot of this criminal justice stuff wasn't happening until he came on. So I said to him, thank you very much. But then the guy who works in his office, Marcus, he says, don't come to jail then. How do you work with the speaker who we try to get to pass parole justice bills, right behind bar bills, county jail to stop the violence in county jails? How do you think about Robert Brooks and Messiah and all the countless men and women who are getting beaten and killed and raped in prison? And then somebody who works for the speaker says, well, don't go to jail then. I know what I did to go to jail. I committed the crime. But I didn't get sentenced. Not one judge said I was getting sentenced to get beat, to get raped, to get set up, to get any of those things. If a standing man had the nerve to come here while I stood right here in this spot, Marcus, Mama, I want to apologize. I'm not going to say to you guys what I said to him, but some people behind me heard me. But you don't get to apologize on that. You don't get to walk that back. Because now I'm wondering, Speaker Hastings, is this why our bills never get on the agenda? Is this what you really think? Because these are the people who you have around you. I am pissed, pot, mad right now. And I didn't walk in this building that way. Because the county jail bills need to pass. Men and women are getting brutally beaten in the county jail. Right here in Albany, we have Sheriff Apple and Superintendent Lyons just running a warehouse of criminality. But I'm going to pass this back to Pastor Jim because, yes, I am extremely upset because this just happened and this is not going to go away easily.
Right. Woo, thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. The bill Ronnie was talking about would put civilian oversight boards to respond to any issues happening in county jails across the state. And we have been getting reports, such as Ronnie mentioned, of beatings, of denial of legal representation, denial of health care by people incarcerated in county jails. We also need to address the use of solitary confinement. The HALT bill was set up to provide special services to people who were having behavioral issues. It was set up to limit the amount of time people could spend in solitary confinement because the United Nations defines solitary confinement longer than 14 days to be a form of torture. In the light of the strike by the prison guards, the Department of Corrections and the governor agreed they would get rid of some parts of that law just on their own. This is a law passed by the legislature. It is the law of the land. We know that people in solitary are more likely to come back broken than better. We got a criminal justice omnibus bill passed last year, which is great. But this year, part of that is to increase the efforts by the Corrections Association of New York and by the Commission on Corrections. This year, the governor has proposed drastically cutting the budget for this group with new responsibilities. That's wrong. That's right. That's wrong. And we support efforts to clean up the parole process, to clean up the amnesty process, to make sure the systems are transparent and consistent. We want to make sure people get their earned time recognized rather than pulled away for a minor infraction. We want to be sure that people who have been sentenced long ago for what was then considered a major crime have an opportunity to bring their penalty back before a judge It's called the Second Look Act. So that sometimes our priorities change as a community. We need to recognize that and give people a way to get their lives back. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have just a few more speakers. We wanted to bring up Rabbi Danielle, who is able to talk about immigration and what's happening in her congregation.
Hi, Rabbi Danielle Weisbrot, and I've been speaking to some of the other clergy about how many of us have felt the need to go to trainings to figure out what to do if our houses of worship are invaded and they come in trying to kidnap or arrest members of our congregation or people who are just there to pray in peace. And as I think about that, I realize that we are 3 weeks away from the holiday of Passover, when on the Jewish calendar we celebrate the Exodus from Egypt. We give thanks for the ability to worship in freedom. And we're told over and over again, I think the most repeated commandment in the Torah, that we are supposed to empathize and protect the most vulnerable in society. The stranger, the resident alien, the widow, and the orphan, all of those who need our protection as a community. Not just for their own sake, but because we ourselves know what that feels like. We don't want anyone in that position, and we want to be a safe and free haven for everyone. And that it is just not acceptable that this is the kind of thing that we need to spend our time on, protecting the people in our midst, when we should be able to do so much more and cater to people's emotional and spiritual needs and all the other supports that we can offer them as a community. So I pray that that's not something that we have to do for much longer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So all of these issues are so intertwined in our communities. We have just a few more speakers on the environment and housing. I want to welcome to the podium Reverend John Paulberg, who will speak about the Council's environmental priorities.
I want to call to your attention an issue that encompasses and overshadows everything else we've been talking about this afternoon, and that is the climate crisis. I don't think there's an issue that is more comprehensive, far-reaching, and critically urgent as addressing the climate crisis. We know that in order to maintain a stable environment and avoid catastrophe, carbon dioxide levels need to remain at or below 350 parts per million. We surpassed that level 35 or 40 years ago. Yesterday, CO2 levels in the atmosphere were measured at over 430 parts per million. That is not sustainable. Any further delay in concerted global action to reduce fossil fuel emissions will mean that we will no longer able to avoid a catastrophe. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said we've got until 2030, 4 years, to address this issue. All of the things that we're concerned about, housing, immigration, human health, economic disparity, all are going to be greatly exacerbated by the climate crisis. The number of climate refugees may climb to as many as 200 million to over 1 billion refugees because where they're living is no longer sustainable. Human health, of course, is affected by heat-related illness, by increasing spread of disease. Weather-related events, floods, droughts, intensifying heat, all of these affect human health and human livelihood. So I can't emphasize enough the urgency of all of us doing everything we can to reduce climate emissions, fossil fuel emissions. And with the federal government's current
war on renewable energy, it's vitally important that New York State and other states take urgent action now. And one way to do that is to move as rapidly as possible to renewable energy, especially solar-generated energy. It's affordable, it's quicker than any other means of generating energy, and it's accessible. There are several bills before the legislature and the Senate today that specifically address solar energy. The Accelerated Solar for Affordable Power Act, the Solar Up Now Act, which would make plug-in solar, balcony solar accessible to the ordinary, everyday New Yorker, and a bill that would increase the solar tax credit. All of these bills not only reduce fossil fuel emissions, but would make our utility bills less expensive and would make solar energy generated power more accessible to New Yorkers, not only homeowners and businesses, but apartment dwellers and others. So we urge our legislators to focus on these bills, to do everything they can to reduce fossil fuel emissions and have more of our energy generated by solar power. Thank you.
So we are coming down to the quick of it. We have two more issues, which is housing and economic justice. What I'll say about housing is that we need to pass the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act. This will help our congregations to build affordable housing for their communities. There is a will. We have a waiting list of congregations that want to develop. We have the resources to match the need. So let the churches build and not get caught up in red tape of zoning that is discriminatory and preventing many affordable housing from being built in New York State. We also encourage our legislature to pass the $250 million allocation for the Housing Access Voucher Program. These vouchers are a lifeline for New Yorkers, and also to give advice to HCR and to OTADA not to restrict these vouchers only to currently people receiving temporary assistance. We need asset-limited, income-constrained New Yorkers to also avail themselves of the Housing Access Voucher Program. One of the things right now that's happening is affordability is out the window in terms of housing, and one of the reasons is also how our healthcare is really constraining us. So I'd like to bring to the podium our last speakers, Anne and Tosh, who are with the Worker Justice Center, to speak about the urgency of passing the New York Health Act.
Hello. My name is Tosh Anderson. I'm with the Working People for Health, and today Working People for Health joins the Council of Churches to call on all New Yorkers to come together to pass the New York Health Act. New Yorkers need universal health care now. How can a bill that would give 20 million New Yorkers health care languish in the state legislature for years? How can that happen when a majority of us agree that the gatekeeper to our health care makes unconscionable profits year by year by denying us health care? Clearly, working people need to stand up and come together to call on our elected officials to pass the New York Health Act. Despite a majority in the legislature, the Governor Hochul, has blocked this bill, and it's going to take us, the working people of New York, to come together to find the political will to make this happen. How can home care workers who are forced to work 24-hour workdays just to keep their insurance, or workers who stay in a bad job just to keep their health insurance, people who are denied their health care because the health insurance company is calling denying care can't continue. Each New Yorker has a story to tell about this. So that's why it is time this year for us to come together. We want to continue working with the Council of Churches to pass the New York Health Act. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who has gathered with us faithfully. Thank you to Senator Jackson. Thank you to everyone who came out today. We are going to do one last thing, which is to take a group photo, and then we're going to go to our legislative visits and take this energy to these offices.